Sudarsha. We have many different type of approach that are coming from like digital enablement for like precise measurements for especially in the context of like marine activities. We have both like Earth observation that can bring like a lot of data, predicting, for instance, the different like tides and like waves and streams, but like we can also be able to monitor like shipping activities, even if transponders, like which are like the locators for the boats, can be turned off, and also like on the ground. So everything like enabling sensor to measure, like say salinity, but also like there is new tools coming up, such as like eDNA, which is able to trace all the type of like species that are traveling through different streams, can be of interest and relevant to like climate action when it is like needed through the implementation of the projects that are like in contact with marine life.
I would like to ask Ashra now. Thank you, Raphael, for the explanation. So, Ashra, now looking from the Commonwealth perspective, now how is nature-based solutions is integrated in urban planning and urban resilience, and how does it help the rights of the residents?
Thank you for that question, Sudarsha. I would like to orient my discussions toward three principles here: just city, urban planning, and nature-based solutions. Of course, comes with the urban resiliency. Yes, of course, digital innovations are important for each and every aspect here, especially with the emphasis on artificial intelligence. Now that geospatial artificial intelligence has encompasses into urban planning practices, but the for example, we can monitor land use changes. You know what is happening in our watersheds, micro watersheds changes. So what is happening in the traffic flow? What are the new patterns emerging in commuting patterns? So those kind of things can be monitored through digital innovation. But the question is, what is the margin? We have intelligence, how we are going to give the stake to artificial intelligence to control our people's behaviors. That is the questions that we are dealing in urban planning in terms of incorporating digital innovation.
Thank you, Ashra. Pranita, now from looking for a point of the CSR, now how do you see the using digital innovation techniques to address nature-based solutions when it like private companies looking in the CSR perspective in Sri Lanka? Like maybe you can talk from the Asian perspective.
Right. Thank you, Sudharsha. Well, if I take maybe a little bit of like I'll stream it down, because CSR, if you can consider, it will be a vast area. So if I take just maybe one area of it, we do restoration initiatives. For instance, if you think about the removal of ghost nets, underwater fishing nets, which is affecting the marine ecosystems. So if you think about it now, how do we understand and how do we find out the locations which is entangled by these fishing nets? Is by local community education. So if they know it, they tell it to us, and then only we get to know that these areas are entangled with ghost nets. So that could be a coral reef which is being covered by these nets, which is being informed to us by the people who are taking tourists towards these areas, and if they inform us only, we will know. So just imagine if you have subsurface level satellite imagery, which could I'm just giving you an idea which is possible. I'm not sure whether this is exactly 100% possible, but what I'm saying is, if we have the underwater topography of maybe the rock boulders or any substrate which is available underneath, and if you can overlay that maybe with another layer which could detect the things which is not supposed to be there. Now, if you have something on top of those rock boulders which is giving you in a different layer reflection, you might have something similar and having spots all over the place, showing that it's a different layer. So in that sense, we'll be able to find out the areas which is sometimes may be contaminated with these fishing nets, or maybe there are new ecosystems that could also be reflecting something like chlorophyll from a algal. So we have to first of all find out of the areas which is already been done by CSR for removal of ghost nets, with for sure with the volunteers, because we as corporates will be only working in a certain area, and then we need a lot of volunteers, especially EarthLanka Youth Network, Clean Ocean Force, and so there are so many volunteers which is working with us. So it will be easy for them also to take it down if we know the quantities or if we know the areas, so we can plan it ahead. So in that sense, if you have any way of tweaking around, maybe having the layers, and then you can foresee the areas which is being contaminated, which we could deploy money for removal of ghost nets, and maybe you can also find out the degraded areas. So that could be a easy way of how digital innovation could lead into corporate responsibility, and also it will be a good initiative for the local youth or the scientists who are working on these areas. So as you mentioned, there are levels of where you can identify the species. So if we can do some similar activities towards these topography elevation kind of a work, I think there will be a better mileage in time to come. So that's my go in one say. But now this is just one of the areas which is possible. But you need to work on it, because I don't think layer wise you can go into that kind of a detail layering on top of it. But you never know, if you come across these kind of areas in areas, and also volunteers could direct these things towards people who are using these topography, so that if you know for sure that there is coral reefs entangled by fishing nets, so you can use those data to manipulate and then find out a way of measuring it, and then it could also in return help us in removal of these kind of marine debris.
So I think you touched upon the like looking when you are in your answer, like lot of collaborations. So Ashra, now basically this looking at the collaborations, smart city initiatives and nature-based solutions is something that everyone talks about when it comes to digital innovation. So how do you see the role of the collaboration? Like how do you visit? Are we in the correct direction, or how do you see this role of collaboration is happening?
Darsha, I think in terms of urban planning, still we are try to find our directions in the what is happening with the AI, nature-based solutions, and digital innovations. But the urban planning has been advanced by these digital innovative approaches. However, for, for example, if we deep dive into this smart city concept, if you get into the very basic level, which is algorithms are inherently biased. And for example, in the US, they had this crime prediction system using AI, but they fed the data they fed into the algorithm were mostly oriented towards black neighborhoods. So most of the predictions they received were like targeted black communities. So it's like what to feed, how to make unbiased algorithms. So this smart city concept is controversial in that sense. So on the other hand, who have the stake or the power or the money to have these smart devices? Sometimes people might think, oh, this is a stupid questions because everybody nowadays have smart devices. But the thing is, sometimes people will not have the access to the internet, access to the devices. Then again, there comes the question of privacy. Who have our biometrics? Why do they monitor our consumption pattern, purchasing power? So all these are like valid questions. So we are in a position where a lot of things are like happening. So I'm still trying to find the direction.
I think Diana, you can add something as well because it's your, your area as well.
Yes, I would actually like to add something from the previous intervention by our colleague. Speaking of remote sensing, because remote sensing has a huge potential that hasn't been unleashed yet. And it brings an additional tool for governments and civil society to track emission sources. For example, in the oil and gas industry, so far, all we know is what the companies report. But now, with remote sensing, it's possible for other people to also observe the methane emission sources from their own countries or even around the world. There are very precise information that can be sourced from satellites. Some of them is free, some of it is not. If somebody is interested in paying, there's well a lot of higher quality that can tell you very useful information, not only for methane emissions from the oil and gas industry. It's also possible to track land use changes. So for MBS solutions, this brings a new revolutionary way to implement projects. Also, it is possible to do a disaster response, so even disaster prevention, also using satellites and forest cover. There's many applications. Water sources, it's possible to track water sources and different atmospheric conditions like air quality. Everything very useful and enabling civil society to also participate, not only corporate world or the government itself. If somebody is interested in learning a little bit more, there is a free tool by NASA, NASA Applied Remote Sensing Training. They have a website with full capacity building services that are free to enroll, and these have many of them have relations to climate change adaptation and mitigation. So I would like to invite the public to check that out and have some capacity building in that sense. Thank you.
Diana, I think Diana and Ashra. Now, this question, now, where after you spoke about the remote sensing, just want to know like how the technology is leveraging when it comes to smart city development. Like how is the process so far? Now, how do you see this? I think first Ashra, then Diana.
I think when it comes to spatial technologies like remote sensing, GIS, there is a huge potential. Of course, there is a huge capacity that we can, absorb. We can do prediction models, forecasting, including disaster risk resilience, disaster warnings, and so on. In the city development, in terms of urban planning, we can, as an urban planner, we cannot give priority to any sector. The technology should be only a tool to facilitate that urban development, not that urban planning should not be a tool of the technology. So which is increasingly happening with many other sectors. Even in our social lives, we sometimes we do not know what is the role of the phone. So for example, so those questions are there, but of course there is huge potential in terms of getting data, big data, including those data into the system, how we feed and do prediction models and navigate, create efficient transportation systems. So it's always there are pluses and minuses. It's all about how you balance yourself, where do you orient yourself, what do you want, and when do you need it. So it's just a tool. So that is what we urban planners must keep in our mind.
Diana, anything to add on smart city development and nature-based solutions? How do you see this leverage?
I want to stress, also agreeing with our colleague, that the solutions are there, the tools are there, but the potential is not unleashed yet. So this sort of awareness or these panels can help us bring attention to use these tools for mitigation and adaptation. I know AI has.
I think before mentioning AI, we should just look at like what is the low-hanging fruits, and like some of them, when you mentioned about GhostNet, for instance, is really also leveraging the community and getting them to report. Now penetration rate of like smartphones is pretty prevalent in like most places around the world, and simple reporting system by WhatsApp are already delivering good results. Some of the issue from a technical point of view of like getting access through Earth observation about location of GhostNet is going to be extremely costly. Whereas the community can be incentivized somehow to report and preserve their ecosystem in an active way. In terms of urban planning, definitely also, I guess the integration of the opinion of like all stakeholders and also the interaction where they can be actively impacting their local environment makes a lot of sense. We've seen like some examples in Europe with systems for like people practicing like canoe, like or being on like waterways that would actually like report where they would find like location of different plastic across the stream. And the approach didn't stop just at collecting, was helping to find the source of this plastic. So like getting like upstream to make sure that actually you can solve the problem, the root of the problem, and not just the problem. And I think when it comes to solution, we definitely have different type of solution that can be very exotic and attractive. But like, for instance, eDNA, which is the collection of like a sample of water or like soil and making a correlation towards like all the species that interacted with this specific sample, is costly. And at the moment, there is no methodology to attach it to. So we're still looking definitely on the biodiversity field about like what benefits it can bring. But that leads to maybe just also some of the issue, which is like a single source of data. And like you need to have correlation. You need to have like Earth observation that can be verified with ground truth. We can be verified by community checks. And I think it's the involvement of like all these elements that now, since like a large part of us definitely have a smartphone in our pocket, we can already leverage that. If you look at it also from another angle, we have LiDAR technology in like the most recent phones now, which can help to actually like measure with an accuracy of like, I think it's a few millimeters, something like very, very precisely, very fast, can be leveraged and can bring a lot of benefits. So it's a combination of like all these different tools that we have in our kitchen and like how we want to cook our solution to make it something that delivers like a good result.
Now, some of the simple things which we use in science-based solutions is like citizen science. Now, this is a good example which we can elaborate. Now, Sri Lanka being still a developing country, we use a platform called iNaturalist to like spot the species. Whenever we come across a species, we can just take a picture, upload it to the cloud or the platform, and then that cloud even goes to a certain level where they can give a like an average reading of what species it could be. It for sure goes into the genetic level, but even sometimes like if you just upload a picture of maybe it could be a snake, maybe it could be a butterfly which you come across day to day, like even in your garden, you can even pinpoint the location where you found it, like with the map. And some of our members using citizen science in Sri Lanka, they've had more than 1 million points. And then this could be one of the good platforms which everyone can use. I have iNaturalist in my phone and also in my laptop. Whenever we come across species, which if now if it is a plant variety, that will be really easy. Now animals go around here and there, but like if you have even you can map out the range of a species, a specific species. It could be threatened, it could be critically endangered or vulnerable. But if you have the location, that could lead into other scientists or other members who are studying that to collaborate and work on those areas. You don't need to go around asking people, did you see this animal? Did you see this animal? And also when it comes to accuracy, sometimes it's really hard because if you ask the local community, just wondering whether you have spotted a leopard in this area, yeah, they would have said, yeah, we saw it last week. But that last week could be even 2 years back. Yeah. So sometimes the data accuracy could be easily found out with those kind of methodologies like citizen science platforms, where that location point would be given with the date, the GPS coordinate, the species name or the genus and the species name, and the person who has collected it. So accuracy could be up to a certain level. And not only that, now, for instance, if I'm not an expert in a plant variety, which I don't know, maybe, I'm just giving a suggestion that this is there. And then the others who are experts on those levels, they could go see the picture. If I have added few pictures, then they can even spot the flower, spot the leaves, spot the elevation, spot the location, and tell me back, no, this is not the species which you recommended, but this is that. So that way, platforms like that, like simple digital innovation platforms, could lead a better image in the scientific world doing these kind of things.
Yeah. And I actually just want to add one thing, but this is like active collaboration, and you get like multiple source of data. And like, for instance, if you correlate it to other things, like there is like bioacoustics at the moment, which got like a lot of interest. So for like, just a quick reminder, is like equipping like a forest with multiple different source of like microphones that after that correlate the information to a database and helps to monitor like all the species, and can even like accurately describe if it's a juvenile or a senior member of a certain species, but can also help, for instance, prevent deforestation because it can monitor like chainsaws, also like human traffic, walking in the forest. And that combined with a tool that is like distributed and keep enhancing, and also like promote like active engagement by the community to actually report and get interested in actually conservation and finding out more about the nature that surrounds us, you can get like to very positive results that benefit like multiple streams.
Okay, so I think in the questions I brought to us, most of the answers came. But just to get an idea, Rafael, now basically, what are the key challenges that you have been seeing in using digital innovation for nature-based solutions, and how did you overcome it?
No, it's actually, well, that's the thing, is we're talking about complexity. We need to make things simple. Like when you make your application and you want the user to use it, you want either to like make it very easy to do, but like you can even like gamify it, make it as like an engaged, like active system that brings a satisfaction to the user. Some of the tools that we have come up in like forms that are like really complicated and like very difficult to extract. And what I think is the most interesting challenge is actually make this accessible to as many people as possible, and in making it understandable, making sure the data is not synced in, but like accessible and transparent, with what you mentioned, Diana, to make sure that like everybody can be like involved and collaborate into like getting like the best outcome out of it. So I would say that like out of the wealth of like solutions that exist at the moment, we find out often that a lot of people with very interesting technologies are actually very difficult to understand. We heard recently about someone who was using, I even forgot the name, but it's like some kind of device that helps to monitor like the forest breathing. And well, of course, we're looking at like how to apply it to conservation in different ways and see if it works. Apparently, the best route being degraded forest, because you can actively monitor like the progress of the forest. But like, it's how do we demonstrate it to someone that doesn't know anything about that and make it accessible? So I think it's more like a collaborative engagement and making sure that it's inclusive and not like becoming another circle of like very confined data.
So Parinda, now thanks, Rafael. Now Parinda, now basically how do you see the space now when it comes to private sector? Now, how do you see the space for private sector to engage digital innovation in nature-based solutions?
Okay, if I am one of the people who are using like mapping at a very low level. What I use mostly is Google Earth, because that's an easy platform where I can showcase to people who don't know. Because if I use like satellite imagery and overlaying and so on, if you come to corporate sector, you need to show them the thing which you can understand. Like that also comes to into how people will understand, and then making it simple for them to understand. Now, what I mostly use is Google Earth to show the topography, the elevations, and also maybe restoration areas. And we can easily show this area is for, having a natural forest reserve. There is another forest patch over here, and then this is the fragmented land. So that kind of a thing is being used at the moment with the technology which is available in Sri Lanka without going into deep layers and LiDAR and satellite imagery. Now, what I can see is now we are just using that in simple terms to quantify and also like showcase the data. But what if we take it the other way around? Now, imagine if you have satellite imagery, and imagine if you have, for instance, we are doing a restoration project in Bopatalawa, Central Highlands in Sri Lanka, where that's almost considered cloud forest, which is in some areas that's been called alpine forest or maybe mountain forest. So the mountain vegetation is being fragmented in that specific area, which we want to restore for water conservation. This is a corporate initiative which we do with EarthLanka and different corporate entities. What we do over here is restoration by using community, and then that will help in long term to restore the water ecosystem, because it's the forest area which is giving you water. But we have so much of species found in there. Now, there are small ecosystems where you find so many threatened species. Now, if you can, I'm again showing you that there is possibilities of using technology to come up with different solutions. Now, if we have, I'll give you the most basic example. Now, we know there are the mountain leopard, Panthera pardus scotia, the subspecies which is found in the mountain zone, which is like puffy. It's normal, not like the very streamed leopard which is found in dry zone arid conditions, but it's like a bulky, stocky animal. Now we have the areas which is found in the Horton Plains National Park, which is adjacent to the patch which are growing. Now, if we get that details, and if you map out the areas which the animal goes around, you might have specific niches or habitats which they prefer. Now, you can use that data, or maybe even it could be a flowering plant or maybe another species. Now, you can use that specific geographical data and then see what are the correlating areas which is found in the surrounding area. Now, if you correlate it, you can also use this to see whether there are species found in those areas also, which is correlating to the mainland, the forest reserve. So if you can come across with these species mapping, or maybe it could start up with maybe a radio collar which is tracking 1 or 2 species around, and then using that data to manipulate it to something else, and then you can use the elevation, topography, and coming out and then having the specific ecosystem. This could be easy for plants because you can find the vegetation with water, or vegetation which is like at a very higher elevation, or maybe you can easily take the layers and then layer it out. I'm just thinking there could be various where you can use in finding specific geographic niches or habitats which is preferred by species. So if you do that, you can easily copy paste data and see what are the correlating ones, and then maybe go and find it out. It might be giving you maybe good accurate readings up to 99% accuracy, or it might be even different. So we have to find it out, but that will give you data which can be used in different ways. This is a possibility. Now, even when we restore the ecosystem, now Sri Lanka does not have a forest cover being exactly 100% mapped. Now, this is as a entity, as a country, if you have the forest cover mapping by a satellite imagery, you can also think about the sequestration of the country itself. Now, if you find the vegetation, you easily can find the carbon sequestration rate. And then you can say, this is the amount which is being sequestered by the forest, or maybe mangrove ecosystems, or maybe even marine ecosystems like seagrasses. So surrounding area mapping could give you solutions, or maybe come up with numbers where we can quantify as a country, we are here, we have to be here maybe by 2030 or 2050. So these kind of correlation data could be easily giving you statistics to be as a nation, not even as corporates, but as a nation also, you can be in that area saying that this is our footprint and this is what we want to do in future. So these are areas which is totally possible, but maybe because of lack of digital innovation, or maybe because we have not used it in that way, we might have been mapping areas which is small in quantities, and then saying this is the for science students, or maybe for university students who are doing it in this way, they might have done it in smaller quantities, but if you can do it for the country itself holistically, that might give you better results. That's what I can say.
Thank you, Balinder, for explaining that. I think about the CSR space on digital innovation. Now, I would like to get ask Ashra, Diana, and Rafael. Now, basically, how now the space now when it from the perspective of South America, from the perspective of Commonwealth, how you see the space for the using digital innovation on nature-based solutions and smart city development? I think we who can go first? Okay.
I'll highlight a little bit on, from the Commonwealth perspective. So, Commonwealth has, different economies, especially these island nations who are very concerned about climate change and, adverse impacts. So we can definitely use these technologies for these nations, but unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to resources for to incorporate these technologies, it's a huge. There are like huge drawbacks. For example, softwares are it's becoming more and more inclusive. For example, few years ago, sometimes the whole software comes as a package. Now they have different elements, different segments that you have to purchase. So in order to incorporate these digital innovations, we need softwares, which is very expensive to afford for those island nations. So on the other hand, there are of course Commonwealth facilitates artificial intelligence, learning courses for youth. I see a lot of initiatives comes from African regional countries, especially youth are working on delivering digital innovation and digital solutions, mapping, cartography, all those beautiful things with the community to address the climate change impacts. So but Asian in terms of Asian regional perspective, I think we also are in a position where we try to find our own technology. Most of the technology is designed in the Western countries, so the way we need to incorporate those Western technology in the Eastern context is a question. So I think South Asia as a region has come up to a place that we design our technology to address our climate, our culture, our way of using the technology. But the science is science; it is abstract. So we definitely can incorporate those principles. Also, we can adapt science and the principles and the digital, that science based on science for the digital innovations to address our needs. So those are my comments.
Thank you. I want to add some perspective from Latin America. You asked about the city development and how digital innovation tools can help have a sustainable growth. Well, in Latin America, as in other parts of the country, we have experienced a very rapid, uncontrolled growth of cities and also population. So, for example, speaking specifically of the energy sector, if we could have more and more smart cities with smart grids, that would be tremendously impactful to address climate change. For example, in Mexico, where I am from, we have the grid capacity and we have a demand for energy, right? So these are not growing at the same rate, which means that as the energy demand increases exponentially, as the population and growth of cities, therefore the demand for energy, the grid or the supply basically stays the same, or the infrastructure that you can use to supply this demand is staying the same. And this is the exact same problem that many cities and many countries face, which means that eventually then there's a high peak for energy, which is not matching the supply of renewable energy, because that comes mostly when if it's solar energy, it's during the day, then there's a high peak for demand during the night. So if we could have smart cities saying, okay, I have a surplus of energy right now, people put the washing machines right now, or production, or things that are like sometimes that can be scheduled. This could be much more control, and we could have enough, or we could do more with the same energy infrastructure that we have. So digital tools would be very greatly appreciated in the growth of cities. So we need to deploy this to the government sector, which is in charge of, or could we, the government sector that could be in charge of the planning, and then also the construction sector and the population itself, so they are integrated to these tools. And it's exactly the same problem in many cities. So it's just a comment here on how the energy sector can be addressed with digital innovation.
Now the same thing. I was there in the Japan Pavilion today at COP8. Now what we saw is they have had an app which is only used in Japan. What they say is they are also incentivized. Now they have peaks of energy utilized, and then they want to reduce that. And then, but they showed us in very simple terms. They had 3 mobile phones being kept over there, and then they had the graphs of peak and off-peak grid usage. And instantly, what they show is they'll be sending a message to the consumer saying that if you reduce the amount of energy which is used in that area, you'll be incentivized, and that goes directly into their account. Yeah, so that way, now we should be thinking about that maybe in a global level, and also a regional level first, and then maybe global. So we were wondering whether this could be used in local level as well, but they said that this is at a prototype level, and then but then again they had covered almost not the whole country in Japan, but so many regions in Japan already, and they are showing that most of the users, the consumers, are using it because they are getting money back. So that way, if we can maybe utilize their technology and then maybe use it on a platform which is already existing in the local level, that would be a better image.
Just to bounce on what you said earlier about integration with AI and leveraging also, like local practices and specificities. There's been like a project run by Microsoft to engage like smallholder farmers in India, where thanks to AI, actually, they could convert 150 dialects very effectively and just leverage WhatsApp again to help them to have like a chatbot that could help them to address many of the different concerns they have as regard to their crops. So like, for instance, asking what would be the best time to do the planting, or also like what is the local scheme for actually selling to the local cooperative. And this is active engagement. The same way then like what you mentioned about this app in Japan and this active participation of the public. When it comes to climate change, definitely we need to be everybody attached on the same wagon in order to be more effective. And this is where like we can have like digital innovation coming as like a centerpiece that is transparent and helping the people to communicate between each other, making sure all the stakeholders are actually united in the same direction. So this is one of the biggest leverage we can have.
Very interested here from all of you on these thoughts. I think my final question. So basically, I will start with Diana. Diana, and after that, others can contribute. The key takeaways. The key takeaways when it comes to digital innovation and nature-based solutions, and also smart city development. What are your thoughts?
Okay, key takeaways. I think it's important to remember the tools are there. So it's not a matter of technology, it's a matter of using the technology and deploying it. And 2, it will enable a lot of transparency and data collection, which is part of the things that sometimes slow down some processes. I leave you with those 2 key takeaways. Thank you.
On my side, in the startup world, they talk about like move fast and break things. I won't abide by that. I would say more like try things, but like involve everyone and make sure that like you can leverage like the best capabilities from the whole part of all the stakeholders.
Well, if you think about in the corporate level, I would say innovation is already there, but you need to think more and think in the ESG framework or as well as the sustainability frameworks. So you can be thinking wacky ideas, but sometimes they might work, and then sometimes they might be showing you better results. And being first will also be there and an advantage. So the others could also follow. So no matter what an idea could look like, it's always good to do it. If you fail, you fail. But if you success, that might even be under your name, and maybe you'll be the first to make it global. So it's always good to do something than just waiting. So innovation, digital innovation, is also in the same process. So you have to think beyond what you are doing and then execute it so that it will work sometimes.
Well, my point would be use the tool, use the advantage, take the advantage, use the tool, but don't let the tool to use you. So the second one is be mindful, always critique the results you receive. Take a step back and see what is happening. Did I get the correct image? What does this image tells you? What does is this a reality that is happening on the ground? So always critique, always go to the ground. Just don't depend on the results you get out of from a satellite image. So the reality is way far different from an image. That is my point. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the panel. I think it was an interesting discussion, and I must thank the people joining in person, and also I'm sure a lot of people are online watching this panel discussion. And also I must thank the team of the Digital Innovation Pavilion, because of you all. I think you all gave us the space to do this panel, and thank you very much. And that's it for today. And thank you all. You have questions? Oh. Yeah.
The tools to localizing for each of us. So in terms of that, I want to know that you all said the tools are already there. So I come from Sri Lanka. So I just want to,
Sure.
I just want to ask whether is there any best practices in terms of cascading this to awareness about the tools to the grassroots, because we of course see when it comes to addressing or rather combating climate change, policymakers, researchers, grassroots level, implementers, the cascadings are not so great. I don't know, this is one challenge that I feel. So I just want to put this question to you all: how better this digital innovation or the tools could cascade to the grassroots. Yeah.
So I think this action by Microsoft actually shows that it can go all the way to every individual on the ground, leveraging actually grassroots level. In this exercise, like smallholder farmers, and even like in some cases to involve like all members of the community, some people that are illiterate, using, for instance, WhatsApp, and just like the possibility to have like voice messages that can after that be translated into like a readable machine-driven system, helps to make sure that it's inclusive. Now we're still at the early stages. I mean, like maybe 5 years ago, they were like not the same rate, definitely, of like smartphone penetration in the global south. But from personal experience, I can see now that it's like a massive rise, and it's coming with like a lot of benefits. So I believe that in order to be successful, digital innovation must be inclusive of like all layers of the society. So I'm hopeful that in the future, next year, you'll have, hopefully with my co-panelist and animator, like maybe like more example of like how you can leverage grassroots level in order to like to deliver more results collectively.
If I may, I can give you two examples which we are already using. One is when we have the economic recession, we had lower amounts of fuel in the country, and then we had an app which is taken on a weekly basis. We had to pump the fuel for vehicles on a weekly basis, and then it was done through a QR code. So no matter how much you wanted to pump, if you have the QR code, if your code is like if your limit is available, then only you were able to pump fuel. That happened throughout the country. And if you don't have the smartphone with you, maybe to show the QR code and then scan it, they even print it out and then had it displayed in a vehicle like a pass. Yeah, they showed it and then scan the QR, and then that's how they pump fuel. So that was happening in a time where we were afraid of change. So that happened and it worked. So now there is no more fuel issues in the country. So we are happy. So so that is one. And the number two is Dialogue as a network provider in Sri Lanka. They have this app for agricultural farmers, saying that these days there will be rain and these days there could be droughts. So in advance, they are having with the meteorological department collaborations, so that they are providing you weather forecast and also advanced predictions. Now this is the area where you need to start cropping. This is the area where you need to finish it and then harvest, because then soon there will be rains. So that is done at a very minimal level, but this could be explored. There could be so much of examples which we sometimes don't know, and technology is also in a way where we also need to understand and then go finding. We should be in search of these technologies. There could be so many things which is already happening in the country which we might be not be even knowing. So so that way it's been utilized for a certain extent, but I don't think it's been broadened up. There could be possibilities where when you mention how deep that could go into grassroots level, even us in the team, or maybe all the members who are participating, it could be their responsibility to do the homework and find it out, so that could be effectively used in a way where we can disseminate the knowledge. So we could be the ones who are taking the knowledge towards the community. So that way we should drive and lead the drive.
I will give you some, one example. So I'm an yeah, I'm an GIS and remote sensing specialist, also an urban planner. So my work, I did a slum mapping project in Sri Lanka. I do not like the word slum. I will call it as underprivileged settlement. So I use all those satellite built up environment, NDVI, and all those indices to prepare this, the settlement map. But unfortunately, I didn't get a good result. So I decided to go back to the community and see what is happening. Then only I got to know that there are more complexities, in terms of built-up structural complexities. Then I decided, okay, instead of going from top to bottom, let me start from the bottom to top. I started participatory mapping projects in the slum community. I did that project in several slum communities in Sri Lanka. The basic objective of conducting a slum mapping is these slum communities are excluded from the map in urban development, mapping section in Sri Lanka. It's because of their underprivileged. They don't. The map will give them a voice. So that was the whole purpose. So instead of going from top to bottom, I started it from bottom to top. So then I correlated all these data, and just to make sure all these things are there. And if I had a resources to do drone mapping, that could have been improved the accuracy instead of going through these landsat images and so on. Yeah.
Final remark, there are also NGOs and organizations that help grassroots find best practices and build the ecosystem around it. For example, the Climate Reality Project, that's around the entire world. They have people in every country, and they really do a great job at this, at making tools available to people, information available, and bringing people together. So perhaps you can also check that out in the internet and see if you can join.
Any other questions? We can sit. We can sit or we can stand. Yeah, then we can take the picture. So thank you, everyone.
That's what I keep saying. I know. Thank you, but no one really understands. It's like the tuna sandwich.
Thank you so much.